All right, everyone. So today we're going to dive deep into how to absolutely crush it in your dance teacher interview, that dream job interview,
Yeah,
using, of course, all the amazing resources that RoleCatcher has gathered for us
absolutely.
to really help you, the listener, stand out and really impress those interviewers.
hmm
And to help us with this, we have an expert with us today, someone who knows the dance world like the back of their hand.
Happy to be here. Really excited to dive into this.
Okay, so first things first, what's so special about RoleCatcher? Especially, if I'm sitting here, I've got my dance shoes, I'm ready to maybe trade them in for, a clipboard. What's RoleCatcher all about?
So, RoleCatcher, I think of it kind of like a secret weapon because it really helps you put your best foot forward. So, they use AI, for example, to tailor your resume
Oh, wow.
to make sure you're highlighting those skills that dance studios are really looking for. So you're not left wondering, like, did I emphasize the right experience? It takes all the guesswork out of it.
That's amazing.
And then on top of that, that dreaded interview question prep.
Oh, tell me about it.
They have this massive database, over 120,000 interview questions, all specific to, the dance world, each with tips on how to craft a great answer.
Wow, that's amazing. So no getting caught off guard. You know what I mean? You're not going to be surprised
Yeah.
by any weird question they throw at you.
You'll be ready for anything.
Okay, so are you ready to dive into some of these interview questions?
I am.
Because I know I am.
Let's do it.
This is where it gets juicy. All right, question number 1. How did you become interested in dance? And how did you go about pursuing a career as a dance teacher? Now, this one seems kind of straightforward, but I bet there's more to it
Oh, for sure.
than just, listing off.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I danced here, then I did this.
Definitely. So they're not just looking for a timeline of your dance experience, right? They really want to hear what sparks your passion. What was that moment that made you realize dance is it for me? Were you 5 years old twirling around in a tutu, or did you discover it later in life? And then how did that passion for dance lead you to teaching? Was it, helping a friend with a routine? Maybe you choreographed for a school play and you realized, wow, I love sharing this art form. They want to understand your why.
So it's like, show them that this isn't just a job for you. It's like a calling. It's in your blood.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I noticed here in the guide, it specifically says, avoid simply listing qualifications.
Yes.
What are some other pitfalls that you see people making when they answer a question like this?
I see people being, I guess, too generic in their answers, right? You can say, oh, I'm hardworking and I love dance. But honestly, anyone applying for this job could say the same thing. It's important to use specifics.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, like, I'm passionate about ballet, you can say, the first time I saw Swan Lake, my jaw dropped. I was mesmerized, and I knew that level of artistry was something I wanted to be a part of. Paint them a picture. Let them feel your journey.
Okay, so like I'm in the interview chair right now. I'm applying to be a dance teacher. I'm nervous.
Okay.
What might be a strong answer? What might that sound like?
Sure. So you could say something like, I started dancing when I was 8 years old. And honestly, it was because my best friend dragged me to a jazz class. I was hesitant at first, but it just clicked, The music, the athleticism, the creativity, it felt like I finally found my thing. And then years later, when I was helping my little brother with his dance for the school talent show, I realized I loved teaching even more than performing. Seeing him light up on stage, sharing that passion with him, that's the magic I want to recreate.
Wow. Okay, so you snuck in your experience there, but it's not just a list.
Right.
It's a story.
Exactly, a story.
And I can feel the passion. I can hear the passion in that answer.
Exactly, that's what you want to do.
Now, RoleCatcher's AI, it can actually tailor your answers for specific jobs, right?
Well, absolutely.
So how would that work in this case, let's say?
Okay, so for example, let's say the job description really emphasizes creativity.
Okay.
You could tweak your answer to focus more on how you choreograph those routines for your brother, highlighting your creativity and choreography skills.
So smart. It's like having a customized answer key for every interview you go on.
Exactly.
Amazing. Okay, are you ready for question number 2?
Oh,
Okay, so we've talked about your journey as a dancer and your teaching style, but now let's get really specific, into the nitty-gritty.
let's do it.
Question number 2, all right. What is your teaching philosophy and how do you apply it in your classes? So this is really getting to the heart of, like, what kind of teacher are you?
Exactly. Yeah. This is where you articulate your approach to dance education.
Mm.
Think of it like almost like a mission statement for your dance classroom. So, are you all about discipline and technique, or is your focus more on fostering creativity and self-expression? Do you believe in, a really structured learning environment, or do you prefer a more free-flowing approach? They want to see that you've thought this through and that your philosophy aligns with their studio's values.
Okay, so it's not enough to just be like, I want my students to have fun.
Right, you've got to back it up with concrete examples.
Okay, yeah.
So how do you create that positive learning environment? How do you cater to different learning styles, which I know we're going to talk about in a minute? But the guide mentions things like positive reinforcement and constructive criticism.
Right, right.
How do you do that effectively?
Yeah, and that actually reminds me, in the dance teacher career guide that we have, it was talking about how, being a dance teacher isn't just about those physical steps.
No, absolutely not.
It's about understanding, like, child development, being a mentor.
It's a lot more than just steps.
That's a lot to balance. Okay, sorry, back to question 2. What's, like, a really strong answer for this? What might that sound like?
So for this one, you could say something like, my teaching philosophy is really rooted in this idea of empowerment through dance.
I love that.
Yeah, so yes, technique is essential, but I firmly believe that nurturing a student's individual artistry is just as important.
Yes.
And I achieve this by creating a really safe space for exploration and growth where, it's okay to make mistakes. We see them as learning opportunities. And so, for example, to encourage creative expression, I might incorporate improvisation exercises within a structured routine, or maybe I'll use analogies to break down, complex steps in a way that clicks with different learning styles.
Oh, that's fantastic. You gave such good examples there. It's like, I can see you in the classroom. I can see your philosophy coming to life.
Yeah, you want to bring it to life for them.
And you snuck in there about different learning styles, which is actually perfect because that leads us perfectly to question 3.
I was going to say, smooth transition.
How do you differentiate your teaching approach for students with different learning styles or abilities? This feels especially crucial in dance because there's so many different ways people learn best.
Absolutely. You've got visual learners, kinesthetic learners, auditory learners.
Right.
And you can't just teach them all the same way and expect, everyone to grasp it. So this is where you prove you're not a one-size-fits-all teacher.
Yeah.
You've got to have a toolkit of methods ready to go.
So for a visual learner, for example, what would you do differently?
Yeah. So for a visual learner, you'd use a lot of demonstrations, right?
Oh,
Maybe you even draw out the steps,
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. And then for someone who's more kinesthetic, they need to feel the movement first. So you'd probably incorporate more like physical guidance, have them actually feel the movement in their body.
Okay.
So you really want to think about those different learners and how you can adjust.
Yeah, and it says here that you should avoid making assumptions about a student's ability based on their background. And I think that's so, so important because you never know what someone's,
Right, exactly.
tapping the table with.
Yeah, you might have a student who's really shy, but that doesn't mean they're not incredibly talented, right?
Yeah.
Or you might have a student with physical limitations, but that doesn't mean they can't excel in their own unique way.
Yes, totally.
It's about being really observant and adjusting your teaching to help each student thrive. So for example, let's say you have a student with ADHD who really struggles to focus during long explanations. Instead of overwhelming them with, tons of verbal instructions, you might break down the steps into smaller, more manageable chunks, use visual cues, hands-on demonstrations to really keep them engaged.
Okay.
So it's about meeting them where they are.
I love that. Meeting them where they are, so important. Okay. So what would be like a really strong answer to this question? Like in the interview, what would you say?
You could say something like, I believe that every dancer learns differently.
Oh.
Some students need to see the steps, so I might use, visual aids, sometimes even dance notation, if that's appropriate. Others learn best by feeling, so I might incorporate more partner work or, offer hands-on corrections during practice. It's about really paying attention to each student's strengths and adapting my approach to help them succeed.
Perfect. Okay, so you're showing them you get it.
Exactly.
You understand they're not all the same. Every student's different.
Yeah.
And again, I know that RoleCatcher's AI feedback could really like fine-tune that answer even more. Let's say this studio, their whole thing is like one-on-one attention.
Absolutely.
Could really highlight that in that answer.
You can tailor it to what they're looking for.
Oh, I love that. Okay, question 4. kind of related here.
Okay.
How do you ensure that your classes are inclusive and welcoming to students from diverse backgrounds? And this feels like, okay, this goes beyond just different learning styles. This is about,
It goes deeper.
yeah, creating a space where everyone feels safe.
Absolutely. Safe, respected, celebrated for who they are.
Yes, I love that.
And I think that goes beyond, just being tolerant. It's
Right.
about actively promoting understanding and respect within your classroom.
Okay, yeah. So how do you actually do that?
Yeah.
How do you actually put that into practice in a dance class?
So I think this is where your own awareness is really key.
Okay.
Have you thought about incorporating music from different cultures into your warm-up
Oh, I like that.
or discussing how body image is portrayed differently in various dance forms?
Okay.
It's about being really sensitive to those nuances.
So it's like, yes, dance is a universal language, right? We all know that.
Yeah.
But it's also understanding that all these different students are bringing different cultural perspectives, different experiences
Exactly.
to the studio. They don't check that at the door.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. So, let's say you're teaching a ballet class.
Instead of just focusing on the European tradition, you could take a moment to discuss the origins of ballet in the Italian Renaissance courts, or even talk about how ballet has been adapted and reinterpreted in different cultures all over the world.
That's so
From Russia to China.
That's a really cool way to bring in those different cultures.
Yeah, it broadens their understanding
Mm.
and it shows that you're thinking beyond just the steps.
Yes. Yes. And you're showing them hey, I respect you. I see you. I acknowledge you.
Exactly.
And all the amazingness that you bring to this class.
Exactly.
Okay. So what would be a strong answer to that question? If you're in the interview, how would you sum all that up?
Yeah, you could say, dance is for everyone, and my classroom reflects that
Okay.
I strive to create a really welcoming atmosphere where all students feel comfortable expressing themselves fully. So to do this, I might incorporate music from different cultures, I use inclusive language, and I'm always open to having discussions about body image, for example, to make sure everyone feels seen and valued.
That is awesome. That shows them you're not shying away from those important topics.
Yeah, these are conversations worth having.
Right. Okay. Before we move on, I want to quickly touch on something from the career guide that really resonated with me because it talks about how this career path can be physically demanding, right? You're on your feet all day, you're teaching, you're demonstrating.
Yeah, it's not easy.
But the rewards of inspiring others, it makes it all worth it.
It really does.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I completely agree. Being a dance teacher is hard work. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
You're on your feet all day, you're constantly giving feedback, and you're emotionally invested in your students' growth, so it can be draining, but the payoff is incredible. Seeing a student finally nail that difficult step, watching their confidence soar, knowing that you played a part in that, that's what makes it all worth it.
It's those aha moments, right?
Yeah.
When it clicks.
Yes, exactly. It's the best.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've talked about, creating that inclusive space, but now let's talk about actually seeing the progress, right? Question number 5. How do you assess your students' progress and provide feedback on their technique and performance? So it's one thing to see them getting better, but how do you actually tell them that in a way that's going to, help them grow?
Yeah, giving feedback is such a crucial part of teaching dance, but it's definitely a delicate balance. You don't want to just critique, you want to motivate and inspire.
So it's not just your turnout needs work.
No, not at all. You want to be specific and encouraging. So instead of just saying, good job, you could say, I love how you held your core during that pirouette. It made it so strong.
Okay, so it's about being really specific.
Exactly. Pinpoint what they're doing well and what they can improve.
Okay, and then the guide also mentioned something interesting, using video for self-reflection.
Yes.
Is that something you recommend?
I think video can be a really powerful tool, but you have to use it strategically. For some students, watching themselves dance can be a really great way for them to see what they might be missing in the moment. But for others, it can make them a little too self-critical. So, maybe you watch the video together or you focus on one specific thing to improve. You don't want them to get bogged down in the details.
Okay, so use video cautiously. Got it.
Yeah.
What would be a solid answer to that feedback question in the interview?
You could say, I believe in giving regular feedback that's both specific and actionable. So I might use a rubric during practice so students can track their own progress on different skills. I also love doing those quick check-ins, just asking, how did that sequence feel? just to encourage self-awareness. And of course, you always want to praise what's working well.
Okay, that's such a good mix of formal and informal feedback.
Right.
It shows them you're thinking about, like, the whole picture.
Yes.
And speaking of the whole picture, RoleCatcher's AI, again, can really help tailor these answers for a specific job you're going for.
For sure.
So, like, if this studio is all about, individualized attention,
Yes.
you could really play up those one-on-one check-ins.
Exactly. Show them you're on the same page.
I love it. Okay, question 6. How do you motivate and inspire your students to push themselves and reach their full potential? And this feels less about technique and more about, like, I don't know, almost like being cheerleader.
It's a huge part of teaching, honestly. You can be the most knowledgeable dance teacher in the world, but if you can't get your students excited and motivated to learn, it doesn't really matter.
Right, they're not gonna blossom.
Exactly. So this question is really about your ability to create that spark, to ignite their passion.
And the guide talked about, like, sharing your own love for dance
Yes.
as a way to inspire them. So how does that work, like, practically?
It's about being relatable. Share your own struggles, your own triumphs as a dancer. Telling them, hey, I used to be terrified of pirouettes, but look at me now, is so much more powerful than just giving them some generic advice from a textbook.
That's such a good point.
It shows them that you've been in their shoes, literally.
Literally, yeah. You get it. You've been there.
Exactly. You understand the challenges.
Okay. Any other tips for, like, cultivating that motivation in your students?
Yeah, create a supportive environment where they feel safe taking risks.
Okay. Safe space.
Yes, a safe space to try new things and celebrate those small wins. Nailing that double pirouette, finally conquering a difficult sequence, even just acknowledging their effort can make a world of difference.
Okay, yeah, because everyone's at a different level, right?
Absolutely.
So you got to meet them where they're at.
Exactly. So you might say something like, Sarah, I noticed you've been practicing that turn at home and your dedication is really paying off. It looks amazing. That kind of positive reinforcement can be so motivating for a student.
I love that. Okay, last question. It's a big one. How do you keep up with current trends and developments in dance education and incorporate them into your teaching practice? Because dance is always evolving.
Always.
So how do you stay ahead of the curve as a teacher?
I think this is where you demonstrate that you're not just passionate about dance. You're a professional who's committed to constantly learning and growing.
Yeah.
So attend those workshops, follow influential choreographers online, even take classes outside your comfort zone. It all counts.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly. The more you learn, the more your students benefit.
Okay, and when you're answering this in the interview, like, be specific.
Yes.
Don't be vague. Yeah.
Don't just say, I try to stay current. Say something like, I'm really fascinated by the use of technology in dance, so I recently took a workshop on projection mapping for choreography.
Ooh, that's so cool.
Right. It shows them you're taking initiative.
Okay, I'm sold. That's a great answer. Okay, so to wrap up this whole question, if you had to give, like, your killer answer to how do you stay current, what would you say?
I'd say something like, I'm a lifelong learner. I believe in constantly expanding my knowledge. I try to attend at least 2 workshops a year. I follow dancers and choreographers on social media to see what new styles are emerging. And I'm always chatting with colleagues, swapping ideas. And right now, I'm really interested in incorporating more mindfulness techniques into my warm-ups. I think it's so beneficial for both body and mind.
That is a perfect blend of, like, staying informed, but then also, like, actually using it.
Right, putting it into practice.
In a way that benefits your students.
Exactly.
And you know what? That's what RoleCatcher does too.
There you go. Perfect analogy.
It takes all this information, all this, knowledge, and it helps you turn it into interview gold so that AI feedback.
It's like having a coach in your pocket.
Yes. It's like, here's where you're doing great. Here's where you can shine even brighter.
Exactly. It's about maximizing your potential.
I love it. Well, there you have it. A deep dive into not just what to say in that dance teacher interview, but how to say it.
Yes.
To really make an impact.
Absolutely.
Remember, you've got the passion, you've got the skills.
You got this?
And with a little help from RoleCatcher, you'll be walking into that studio.
With confidence.
With confidence, head held high,
Sure.
Ready to, land that dream job. This is host speaker signing off.
Best of luck, everyone.
Wishing you all the best on your dance teaching journey.